So as always, I'm not allowed to just neglect the highest time frame context. That provides a sort of foundation for me to work with all the lower time frames, and that way I can kind of add more depth to any sort of high time frame in actionable analysis, but I have to provide some sort of foundation first. So the idea is, and it has always been, that we are uptrending for the past 6 months. Actually, a couple of days ago, my timeline was seething about which market was worse, 2019 or 2023. Sometimes I feel like we're not really trading the same market. This is still up 60% from year to day. So essentially, the concept is if I go and ask a 4 year old which way this chart is headed, they are 100% going to tell me it's headed to the top right corner. The issue with that analysis is that they can continue telling me that even if price action is trading around these lows. So rather than have a really vague and broad kind of analysis, I've pinpointed a precise region where I can either look for that analysis to be maintained or just kind of give up hope on it entirely. So that is a fancier way of saying that if we lose this level, I'm kind of just assuming that it's lights out and that we would come and break this low anyways. At that point, you're not buying a dip, you're buying a downtrend. So you probably get your bid entries and then some, I would imagine. And in the same kind of fashion, whilst we acknowledge the higher time frame uptrend from year to day, I'm not allowed to neglect the fact that we've been downtrending for the past 2 months or so. Once again, the issue with that is that analysis is not very actionable, as this is the most recent lower high in structure. So that means that I would be coping and complacent, waiting for the 4 year old to tell me that price is finally starting to head to the top right corner upon this level breaking. That doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't really set me up in any sort of way, shape, or form. I'm not doing myself any favors by just having that vague of an analysis. So I have to continue zooming in. So when I zoom in, I do see something that kind of helps portray the idea of that daily chart and maybe get a little bit better of an understanding when that chart starts to flip bullishly. Maybe something like reclaiming these 4 hour 200 moving averages would be a good indication of us finally starting to reverse the trend as of the past 2 months or so. Now, the issue with that is that we've already done this signature and it meant nothing. However, if you know anything about my guard dog barking at the wind analogy, I'm not going to punish my dog for barking and letting me know that there's a potential threat outside. Now, if the threat ends up not actually being a threat, so back into trading terms, if the breakout ends up actually being a deviation, it's not that big of a deal. My dog did its job. It's just that the circumstances that I have no control of didn't shape out in the way that I thought it would. However, the context here is a little bit different as our 4 hour 200 moving averages are confluent with mid range. So a breakout above the 4 hour 200s gives me hope that we will finally go on and break out above this range. But really, all it implies is that we'll go into these range highs yet again, which is already implied by the deviation in itself. So the way that I turn inactionable analysis actionable is yes, we tested a region where we're allowed to make an argument, the same argument that you could have made anytime during the past 6 months. We want to see something that coincides with that bias in the form of strength, levels being reclaimed, structures being broken bullishly, in order to start playing into that analysis because, again, it's not very actionable. So, just with what we've covered so far, we've already been able to whittle it down to 4 hour 200 moving averages, might create some hope so that we can get into that range high. The breakout above the range high is really going to be the thing that allows me to say we're likely going to break this structure and continue trending upwards on the daily from there. So the entire idea is to be able to speculatively kind of assume when structure is going to be breaking rather than taking the very 4 year old approach to things and waiting for them to finally break and have a very inactionable kind of analysis, albeit valid. But again, the 4 hour 200s are not even the best that we can do here. We can actually zoom into an even lower time frame and have a bit more actionable analysis than that and kind of play into the idea of the range of the past month or so. So the concept is very simple. You cannot build a snowman without building snowballs first, meaning if that 6 month long time frame ever wanted to continue uptrending and we were to fulfill my prophecy from January and go on to 38 or 42K or whatever, you would have to start showing strength to some degree. And we already whittled it down to say the 4 hour 200s with a daily market structure break and perhaps a break out of the range entirely. But that would actually be more like a very large snowball. So in order to ever build that, we would need a snowball. And the snowball in this sense is the reclaim of the hourly 200 moving averages along with the previous range lows, which I was discussing in my Bitcoin tweet from yesterday. So now that we've reclaimed that region, I'm allowed to look for resumption of the norm in terms of range trading. And that implies back into mid range along with our 4 hour 200s. It actually even implies a breakout into these range highs as well. range resumption, range lows, mid range highs, mid range lows. The context is different there because we would be above the 4 hour 200s. So the likelihood that we actually go on and break out above the range entirely is what I perceive to be more favorable. And if we break out above the range entirely, I'm imagining that we don't maintain this market structure low on the daily. And voila, we're able to take a very inactionable, vague, and broad analysis on a very high time frame and digest the information in terms of what's going on locally to kind of play into that mindset. So there you have it. There's your Bitcoin update for the weekend. I hope you enjoyed. Much love. Take it easy.